The massive alien ship appeared without warning, materializing just beyond Earth's moon. Its sleek, crystalline structure reflected sunlight like a diamond in space, dwarfing the International Space Station as it passed by. Earth's military forces scrambled to battle stations, but the vessel made no aggressive moves. Instead, it broadcast a message in perfect English. "Greetings, Earth. We represent the Galactic Council. We come in peace." Within hours, world leaders gathered at the United Nations headquarters in New York. The alien delegation would arrive to meet humanity's representatives. Military commanders from various nations stood at attention as the alien craft landed in the designated area. The aliens emerged from their ship with an air of superiority. Their leader, who called himself High Counselor Reed, stood tall with blue-tinted skin and wore flowing robes embedded with lights that pulsed in rhythm with his words. Behind him, 6 other council members followed, each carrying what appeared to be advanced technology. Commander Jack Thompson of the United States Armed Forces led the Earth's military delegation. As he approached the aliens for formal introductions, he noticed their barely concealed looks of disdain at the Honor Guard's ceremonial rifles. "Fascinating," High Counselor Reed said, his translator converting his musical language into English. "You still carry chemical propulsion weapons. How quaint." Thompson maintained his professional demeanor. "Our firearms have served us well for centuries, Counselor." One of the alien delegates, who introduced himself as Weapons Master Pax, stepped forward. He held up a sleek silver device the size of a handgun. "This is what civilized species use. Pure energy weapons capable of disrupting matter at the atomic level. No primitive explosions, no wasteful projectiles." The gathered human military officers watched as Pax demonstrated his weapon on a target set up nearby. The energy beam cut through it cleanly, leaving a perfectly cauterized hole. "Impressive," Thompson acknowledged. "But our weapons have their own advantages." The aliens exchanged amused glances. "Advantages?" Reed chuckled. "Perhaps in making noise and smoke. The Council has moved beyond such primitive tools thousands of years ago. Even the youngest spacefaring races know better than to rely on throwing metal pieces at high speed." Thompson felt his jaw tighten, but kept his cool. He'd been briefed extensively on maintaining diplomatic relations, no matter the provocation. "Would you be interested in seeing a demonstration of our capabilities? We've already analyzed your weapon systems," another council member spoke up. "Chemical propulsion, gunpowder, brass casings, all terribly inefficient. Your most advanced missiles use the same basic principle as your simplest pistol. It's rather charming, like watching children play with toys." The human officers present shared knowing looks. They'd faced this kind of arrogance before, just never from beyond their planet. General Mary Wilson, standing beside Thompson, whispered under her breath, "Let them laugh. They don't know what they don't know." The meeting continued with discussions about Earth joining the Galactic Council. The aliens spoke of trade agreements, technology sharing, and cultural exchange, all while maintaining their air of superiority. Every time they passed an honor guard, they would smile condescendingly at the rifles. As the day drew to a close, High Counselor Reed made an announcement. "The Council has classified Earth as a Category 3 developing civilization. We will provide limited technological assistance to help you advance beyond your current primitive state." Thompson accepted the classification gracefully, but his eyes held a glint of something the aliens missed: determination. As the alien delegation prepared to leave, he couldn't help but notice how their energy weapons had no recoil, no impact force, just clean, surgical precision. He thought about the raw stopping power of a .50 caliber round, the sheer destructive force of an artillery shell, the psychological impact of gunfire. There were things about human weapons the Council didn't understand, aspects of warfare they have forgotten in their rush to seem civilized. As the alien ship rose into the evening sky, Thompson turned to General Wilson. "They've forgotten the basics of physics," he said quietly. "Energy weapons are neat and clean, But sometimes you just need to put good old-fashioned kinetic energy on target. Wilson nodded. Let them underestimate us. Humanity didn't get to the top of the food chain on Earth by being predictable. The sun set on humanity's first day as part of a larger galactic community. In orbit, the Council ship vanished into faster-than-light travel, leaving behind a species they had already dismissed as primitive and backward. They would learn their mistakes soon enough. 3 months after first contact, the Galactic Council sent their military experts to evaluate Earth's defensive capabilities. The assessment team arrived in a smaller vessel, sleek and predatory-looking, compared to the diplomatic ship. The leader of the assessment team, Defense Analyst Max, strode through the halls of the Pentagon with barely concealed boredom. His team carried advanced scanning devices, taking readings of everything they saw. Behind them walked Commander Thompson and his staff, answering questions and providing access as required by the new treaty. Let me understand this correctly, Max said, pausing in front of a weapons display. You still manufacture new designs of these projectile weapons, even after seeing our technology? Thompson nodded. We believe in maintaining and improving all effective combat systems. Max picked up an M4 carbine from the display, handling it like someone might hold a dirty rag. Primitive spring system, chemical propellant, metal projectiles. He set it down with a shake of his head. We expected you would at least be working on plasma weapons by now. We are studying energy-based weapons, Thompson replied carefully, but we find our current arsenal quite effective for our needs. The alien team moved through the facility, their scanners humming. They paid special attention to the ammunition manufacturing areas, watching as machines churned out bullets and shells with mechanical precision. Such a waste of resources, one of the alien analysts muttered. All this metal and explosives, when a simple energy cell could power 1,000 shots. They reached the firing range where demonstration teams waited. Thompson had arranged for a display of Earth's various weapon systems. The first demonstration was a standard infantry rifle qualification. The sharp cracks of gunfire made the aliens flinch. Their expressions turned to disgust at the smell of gunpowder and the brass casings ejecting onto the floor. Barbaric, Max commented. The noise alone is offensive. Our weapons operate in near silence. Next came the heavy weapons demonstration. The boom of a .50 caliber machine gun echoed through the range, followed by the rhythmic thumping of a MiG-19 grenade launcher. The aliens watched the targets being shredded, their faces showing a mixture of horror and pity. How do your soldiers communicate through such chaos? One asked. The battlefield must be deafening. We adapt, Thompson said simply. The noise itself can be a weapon. The final demonstration was artillery. The aliens were required to wear ear protection, something they found deeply primitive, as the 155mm howitzer fired. The explosion downrange was impressive, leaving a smoking crater in the impact area. Crude, Max declared after removing his ear protection. Pure kinetic and chemical energy. No precision, no finesse. A proper energy weapon can disable targets without such messiness. Later, in the briefing room, Max presented his team's findings to the assembled human military leaders. Based on our assessment, he began, displaying holographic charts, Earth's military technology ranks in the bottom 15% of known civilizations. Your reliance on projectile weapons is particularly concerning. He brought up images of various alien energy weapons. These represent the standard across civilized space. Clean, efficient, precise. No bullet drop, no recoil, no resupply concerns. Thompson raised his hand. And shield technology. I understand most advanced species use energy shielding. Correct, Max replied. All Council ships and ground forces use shield systems calibrated to defend against energy weapons. It's the obvious defense against the obvious threat. Calibrated specifically for energy weapons. Thompson pressed. Max waved the question away. Of course. What else would they need to defend against? Now, moving on to our recommendations. The briefing continued, with the aliens laying out a proposed 30-year plan to modernize Earth's military. They recommended phasing out all projectile weapons within 5 years. After the aliens left, General Wilson joined Thompson in his office. "They don't get it, do they?" she asked. Thompson shook his head, looking at the assessment report. "Not even close. Did you notice? Not one question about armor penetration. Not one question about stopping power. They're so focused on their energy weapons, they've forgotten what happens when something solid hits something else at high speed. Should we tell them?" Thompson smiled. "I think some lessons are best learned through experience. Though I hope they never have to learn it the hard way." Outside his window, the alien assessment ship lifted off, carrying a wave's cargo of data and assumptions. In their rush to judge Earth's weapons as primitive, they had missed something fundamental. Sometimes the old ways were still around for a very good reason. And humanity, ever practical, would keep their primitive weapons ready, just in case. 6 months into Earth's membership in the Galactic Council, the emergency alert system activated. The massive screens in the Earth's newly built Galactic Communication Center lit up with distress signals from multiple Council worlds. Commander Thompson rushed into the command center, where holographic displays showed Council ships under attack. The aggressors were unknown vessels, dark and angular, moving with predatory grace through space. "Report," Thompson barked. "Sir, multiple Council worlds under attack by an unidentified species," his aide reported. "The Council is calling them the Ravagers. They appeared from unknown space 2 days ago." The screen showed Council defense forces engaging the attackers. Brilliant energy beams crossed space between the ships, but something was wrong. The Ravager ships seemed barely affected by the Council's weapons. "Energy shields?" Thompson asked, studying the footage. "Advanced ones, sir. Like nothing the Council has seen before. Their ships are taking direct hits from the Council's best weapons with minimal damage." New footage appeared, showing ground battles on various Council worlds. The Ravagers, tall figures in black armor, walked through energy weapon fire like it was rain. Their shields flickered but held. "They're not even trying to dodge," General Wilson noted, joining Thompson. "Those shields must be something special." The Council's emergency channel activated. High Counselor Reed's face appeared, looking significantly less composed than during first contact. "To all Council members," he announced, his translator struggling to keep up with his rapid speech, "we face an unprecedented threat. The Ravagers have attacked 12 worlds. Our weapons prove ineffective against their shield technology." Thompson and Wilson exchanged glances. The mighty Council, with all its advanced technology, was facing an enemy it couldn't hurt. More footage streamed in, Council forces retreating. Cities being occupied. The Ravagers' own weapons, some kind of plasma technology, cutting through Council defenses with ease. "Look at those shield harmonics," one of Earth's scientists pointed out. "They're specifically tuned to energy weapons. The Ravagers must have studied Council technology for years before attacking." Thompson watched a Council heavy weapon platform unleash its full power against a single Ravager soldier. The alien shields flared brilliant blue, but held firm. The Ravager responded with a casual shot that vaporized the platform. "They counted on the Council's reliance on energy weapons," Wilson said, "built their entire defense around it. Classic case of over-specialization in the defender's part." The reports continued coming in. 3 Council worlds had already fallen. The death toll was mounting. The mighty Galactic Council, for all its technological superiority, found itself facing an enemy it couldn't harm. "Sir," an analyst called out, "new data from Council intelligence. The Ravagers are moving methodically through Council space. At their current pace." He paused, double-checking his calculations. "They'll reach Earth in approximately 3 months." Thompson nodded slowly. "Then we have time to prepare. Send word to all Earth's military commands. Begin full mobilization, and get me the specs on those Ravager shields." "You have an idea, sir?" Wilson asked. "Maybe," Thompson replied, watching another Council energy weapon fail to penetrate a Ravager shield. "They built their defenses to stop energy weapons, but I'm betting they never planned for something as primitive as a tungsten rod moving at 3 times the speed of sound." He turned to his staff. "Get me everything we have on kinetic energy penetrators, and start running simulations on their shield harmonics. Let's see how their fancy energy shields handle good old-fashioned momentum." As the emergency broadcasts continued, showing more Council defeats, Earth's military machine began to move. Artillery units were mobilized. Ammunition factories increased production. Ships were retrofitted with railguns. The Council had laughed at Earth's primitive weapons. But now, facing an enemy their advanced technology couldn't touch, those primitive weapons might be exactly what was needed. "Send word to the Council," Thompson ordered. "Tell them Earth stands ready to assist, but suggest they might want to reconsider their opinion on projectile weapons." In space, the Ravagers continued their advance, their shields shrugging off everything the Council threw at them. They moved with the confidence of an invincible force. They had no idea they were heading toward the one civilization that might have the primitive solution to their advanced defenses. The Ravager fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system exactly as predicted. Their black ships, looking like shards of dark glass, moved past Neptune's orbit with deadly purpose. Earth's new detection systems, upgraded with Council technology, tracked their every move. In the Global Command Center, Commander Thompson stood before a wall of holographic displays. "Status report. 12 Ravager capital ships, sir," his tactical officer replied, "plus around 30 smaller vessels. Same configuration that hit the Council worlds." Thompson nodded. Earth had spent 3 months preparing for this moment. While Council worlds fell one by one, humanity had been watching, learning, and getting ready. "All defense stations report ready," General Wilson announced. "Orbital platforms armed. Ground batteries tracking. First response squadrons on standby." The Ravager fleet approached with the same confidence they'd shown at other worlds. Their communication arrays activated, broadcasting in Council standard. "Primitive world." The message began. "Surrender now. Your Council allies cannot protect you. Their weapons cannot harm us. Submit to occupation or be destroyed." Thompson keyed the response mic. "This is Earth Command. We decline your offer." The Ravager fleet accelerated, crossing the lunar orbit. They made no attempt at evasive maneuvers, their superior shields having protected them from everything so far. "They're in range," Wilson reported. "All units ready." Thompson took a deep breath. "Execute Defense Plan Alpha. Let's show them how primitives fight." The first surprise came from Earth's orbital platforms. Instead of energy weapons, they unleashed salvos of tungsten rods. Accelerated to incredible speeds, the simple metal projectiles crossed space in seconds. The Ravager shields flared and failed. Designed to dissipate energy weapons, they had no defense against pure kinetic force. The rods punched through their hull like bullets through paper. "Direct hits," someone shouted. 3 enemy ships showing critical damage. The Ravagers, caught off guard, scattered their formation. They returned fire with their plasma weapons, but Earth's defenses had been positioned with overlapping fields of fire. As the alien fleet descended into the atmosphere, they met their second surprise. Every anti-aircraft battery on Earth's surface opened up. The sky filled with artillery shells, missiles, and streams of heavy machine gun fire. "Their shields are failing," Wilson reported, watching the tactical display. "They can't compensate for multiple kinetic impacts." One of the Ravager ships, its shields overwhelmed by the sheer volume of projectile fire, spiraled out of control and crashed into the Pacific. Another, its hull riddled with holes from constant impacts, exploded in midair. The Ravagers attempted to land ground forces, obviously hoping to use their personal shields that had proven so effective elsewhere. They emerged from their ships in full battle gear, expecting to walk through Earth's defenses as they had on Council worlds. Instead, they met walls of lead and steel. Regular bullets might not penetrate their shields, but heavy-caliber rounds did. The first wave of Ravager troops fell to concentrated 50 caliber fire. The second wave was torn apart by 20 mm cannons. They're pulling back. The tactical officer's voice was filled with disbelief. The Ravagers are retreating. Thompson watched as the surviving alien ships broke atmosphere, accelerating hard for open space. In less than an hour, Earth had done what the Council couldn't in months: defeated a Ravager attack force. The command center erupted in cheers, but Thompson raised his hand for silence. "Send word to all commands. Well done, but stay alert. And get me a damage assessment. I want to know exactly what worked and what didn't." "Sir," an officer called out. "Incoming transmission from the Galactic Council." High Counselor Reed's face appeared on the main screen. For once, he wasn't looking superior or disdainful. Instead, he appeared shocked and perhaps a little humbled. "Earth Command," he said formally. "We request details of your defensive strategy, and perhaps a reconsideration of our previous assessment of your military capabilities." Thompson allowed himself a small smile. "We'd be happy to share our insights, Counselor. Sometimes the old ways are still effective. Now, shall we discuss how to take the fight to them?" As the remaining Ravager ships disappeared into deep space, Earth's primitive weapons had proven a crucial point. Sometimes the simplest solution was the best one. The age of looking down on human military technology was over. The real war was about to begin. The Council's main chamber looked very different from its first meeting with Earth. Gone was the pristine elegance, replaced by tactical displays and weapon schematics. Council members who once looked down on primitive weapons now eagerly studied diagrams of human artillery pieces. Commander Thompson stood before the gathered representatives of 200 worlds, pointing to footage from Earth's defense. "The key is overwhelming kinetic force," he explained. "Energy shields can't properly deflect solid mass impacts, especially not in large numbers." High Counselor Reed, his previous arrogance replaced by grim attention, leaned forward. "How quickly can we adapt our manufacturing facilities to produce these weapons?" "We've already sent technical teams to your major production centers," Thompson replied. "The designs are simple. That's their beauty. Any facility that can produce energy weapons can be converted to make railguns and conventional artillery." The chamber's main screen showed Council worlds retooling their defenses. Energy weapon emplacements were being replaced with human-designed weapon systems. Ships were being retrofitted with mass drivers and kinetic kill vehicles. General Wilson, standing beside Thompson, directed the Council's attention to a new display. "We've also developed hybrid weapons," she explained, "combining your advanced targeting systems with our projectile technology. The results are impressive." The screen showed a test firing. A railgun, enhanced with Council targeting technology, landed 5 shots in rapid succession on a target at extreme range. The Council members murmured in appreciation. "But the weapons are only part of the solution," Thompson continued. "You need to relearn certain fundamental aspects of warfare that you've forgotten." "Forgotten?" asked one Council member. "What could we have forgotten?" "Cover, concealment, the importance of suppressing fire, the psychological impact of combat." Thompson gestured to a human training team working with Council forces. "Your troops have fought for so long with energy weapons, they've forgotten how to deal with an environment filled with physical projectiles." The footage showed Council soldiers learning to dive for cover, to use terrain features for protection, to lay down suppressing fire. Their movements were awkward at first, centuries of energy weapon doctrine having trained them to fight standing up behind their shields. Most importantly, Wilson added, "You need to relearn logistics. Energy weapons are clean and efficient, but they've made you forget the brutal mathematics of warfare. Sometimes victory comes down to who can put the most metal on target for the longest time." The Council chambers hummed with activity as reports came in from the front lines. The first human-designed weapons were reaching Council forces, and the results were promising. Ravager advances had been halted at 3 different worlds. "There's something else," Thompson said, his voice grave. "Something we noticed in studying Ravager tactics. They're overconfident. They've never had to fight defensively because their shields were always enough." He brought up tactical displays of recent battles. "Look here, no defensive formations, no fallback positions. They don't even build proper fortifications. They rely entirely on their technology. And now that technology has a weakness," Reed concluded. "Exactly. But they haven't realized it yet. They're still fighting the same way, still walking straight into our fire zones like they're invulnerable." Thompson smiled grimly. "That's going to cost them." The council session concluded with a formal vote. Earth was elevated to the council's military advisory board, with Thompson and Wilson as its first representatives. More importantly, Earth was given authority to coordinate the council's military response to the Ravager threat. As the chamber cleared, Reed approached Thompson privately. "I owe you an apology," he said. "We were arrogant. We thought technological advancement meant abandoning older methods entirely." Thompson nodded. "The most dangerous assumption in warfare is that new technology makes you invincible. Everything has a weakness. The trick is maintaining enough diversity in your capabilities to exploit the enemy's weakness while protecting your own." Outside the chamber, the sounds of construction echoed through the council city. Ammunition factories were being built. Training grounds were being expanded. The council was remembering how to wage war the old way. And somewhere out in space, the Ravagers continued their advance, unaware that their supposedly primitive opponents were about to teach them a lesson in military history. The tide was about to turn. The Joint Earth Council fleet hung in deep space, engines dark, waiting. 500 ships, most of them retrofitted with human-designed weapons, maintained perfect formation. On the flagship's bridge, Commander Thompson studied the tactical display. "Ravager fleet approaching target zone," his tactical officer reported. "They're following the exact patrol route our intelligence predicted." The trap was set. After months of collecting data on Ravager movements, they had identified a pattern. The enemy's arrogance made them predictable. "All ships confirm weapons status," Thompson ordered. General Wilson's voice came over the command channel. "Ground forces in position on all 3 planets. Artillery batteries ready. Just need them to take the bait." The bait was simple. 3 seemingly vulnerable council worlds, their defense stations prominently displaying energy weapons. Everything the Ravagers could see matched what they'd faced before. "Enemy fleet entering optimal range," the tactical officer announced. 15 Ravager capital ships, standard invasion configuration. Thompson keyed the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, execute attack plan Delta. Remember your training. Time on target, fire for effect." The human phrase, "fire for effect," had become standard across council forces. It meant don't hold back. Put everything you have on target until it stops moving. The Ravager fleet moved into position above the first planet, their black ships arranging themselves in their usual assault formation. They had no reason to expect anything different from their previous victories. "Now," Thompson commanded. 500 ships revealed themselves, thrusters flaring. But instead of energy beams, they unleashed a storm of metal. Railguns, coil guns, and mass drivers fired simultaneously. Thousands of projectiles, from small tungsten penetrators to massive kinetic kill vehicles, crossed space in seconds. The Ravager shields flared brilliantly, and failed. Their formation disintegrated as ships tried to evade the unexpected assault. But there was nowhere to go. The volume of fire was too great, the targeting too precise. Multiple direct hits. The tactical display showed Ravager ships falling apart under the barrage. Their shields are completely ineffective. As the space battle raged, the Ravagers attempted their standard response, landing ground forces to secure the planets. They deployed in tight formations, trusting their personal shields. That's when the ground batteries opened up. Thousands of artillery pieces, hidden in camouflaged positions, fired simultaneously. the sky filled with high explosive shells, each one carefully timed to arrive on target together. Ground forces report massive enemy casualties. Wilson's voice was triumphant. Their shields can't handle the concentrated impacts. They're breaking formation. For the first time, the Council forces saw Ravager troops retreat in panic. Their invincible shields meant nothing against the sheer weight of metal being thrown at them. Those who survived quickly learned what Council forces had spent months practicing: how to dive for cover. Enemy fleet attempting to regroup, the tactical officer reported. They're trying to withdraw. Not this time, Thompson said firmly. All ships execute pursuit plan. Don't let them escape to warn the others. The battle lasted another hour, but the outcome was never in doubt. When it was over, 15 Ravager capital ships lay in ruins, their debris scattered across space. On the ground, thousands of enemy troops had been captured or killed. In the aftermath, Thompson walked through one of the captured Ravager ships with Council scientists. The enemy's technology was impressive, but fundamentally flawed. They had built their entire strategy around defending against energy weapons, never imagining they'd face anything else. Preliminary reports from other sectors are coming in, Wilson reported, joining him. The Ravagers are falling back everywhere. They don't know how to fight against these weapons. Thompson nodded, studying a damaged Ravager shield generator. They forgot the basics, focused so much on advancing their technology that they lost sight of fundamental combat principles. The Council fleet was already preparing for the next phase. Now that they knew the enemy's weakness, they could begin pushing them back. More importantly, they had learned a crucial lesson about warfare. Send word to all Council worlds, Thompson ordered. Tell them to maintain both energy and projectile weapons in their arsenals from now on. Never assume any technology is perfect. The counterattack had begun, and the Ravagers were about to learn why humanity had never fully abandoned its primitive weapons. Sometimes, the old ways were still the best ways. 1 year after the first successful counterattack, the Galactic Council's main chamber was packed for a historic ceremony. Commander Thompson and General Wilson stood before the assembled representatives of all Council worlds, including dozens of newly liberated planets. The Ravager threat has been eliminated, High Counselor Reed announced, his voice carrying across the chamber. Their remaining forces surrendered yesterday at the Battle of Sector 7. The chamber erupted in cheers. On the main display, footage showed the final Ravager fleet laying down arms, their once mighty ships now riddled with holes from kinetic weapons. None of this would have been possible, Reed continued, without the military expertise of Earth. What we once dismissed as primitive has proven to be revolutionary. Thompson stepped forward to address the Council. The victory belongs to all of us. Earth provided the weapons, but it was the Council's ability to adapt, to learn new ways of fighting, that won this war. The displays showed scenes from the past year. Council troops training with ballistic weapons, ships being retrofitted with railguns, ammunition factories rising on 100 worlds. What had started as desperation had evolved into a complete transformation of Council military doctrine. We have established the Joint Military Academy on Earth, Wilson announced. Already, officers from 50 worlds are learning to integrate both energy and kinetic weapon systems. We're calling it the Balanced Force Doctrine. The Council chambers had changed too. Where once there were only displays of energy weapons, now there were exhibits of various combat systems. A captured Ravager shield generator stood as a reminder of the dangers of over-specialization. But perhaps the most important lesson, Thompson continued, isn't about weapons at all. It's about humility, about recognizing that progress doesn't always mean abandoning the old ways entirely. Reed nodded solemnly. We had become complacent. We thought technological advancement alone made us superior. Earth reminded us that warfare is about more than just technology. The displays showed new ship designs, combining the best of Council and Earth technology. Energy weapons worked alongside kinetic kill vehicles. Shields were redesigned to stop both energy and physical attacks. The future of the Council's defense forces will be different, Wilson explained. Every ship will carry multiple weapon systems. Every soldier will train with both energy and projectile weapons. We will never again be vulnerable to a single type of attack. A delegation of former Ravager commanders was present, now working with Council forces to understand their tactics and technology. They had learned the hard way not to underestimate primitive weapons. In recognition of Earth's contribution, Reed announced, the Council has voted to establish the Combined Defense Command. Commander Thompson will serve as its first Supreme Commander, with General Wilson as his deputy. The chamber erupted in applause again. The same Council members who had once laughed at human weapons now stood in respect for Earth's military leaders. But our work isn't finished, Thompson reminded them. The galaxy is vast, and there will be other threats. We must remain vigilant, and more importantly, remain humble. The ceremony concluded with the unveiling of a new memorial. It showed 2 weapons, an energy rifle and a projectile weapon, crossed together. Below it was inscribed, "Progress without wisdom is the path to defeat." Later, in Thompson's new office overlooking the Council city, he and Wilson watched ships practicing combined arms maneuvers. Energy beams crisscrossed with railgun fire, creating a deadly symphony of old and new. "They've come a long way," Wilson observed. "Remember how they used to look at our weapons?" Thompson smiled. "Sometimes the best way to advance is to remember where you came from." The Council forgot that. The Ravagers never learned it. And humanity. We'll keep learning, keep adapting. He picked up a new weapon from his desk, a hybrid design that could fire both energy bolts and physical projectiles. But we'll never forget the basics. Outside, a new class of Council cadets marched past, carrying both energy rifles and traditional firearms. They represented the future, a military force that respected both the old and the new, that understood the value of diversity in combat capabilities. The galaxy had entered a new era, one where primitive was no longer an insult, but a reminder that sometimes the simplest solutions were still the best. And somewhere in the Council archives, they kept a recording of that first meeting, when they had laughed at human guns. They kept it as a reminder to never make that mistake again.